Welcome to Social Media Marketing. This is Sean Canary. This week, due is the Stu Kent quiz for Chapter 3, as well as completing a social media audit of competing brands or companies. Now, Chapter 3 specifically deals with how to do a social media audit, taking stock of the current situation, understanding paid, owned, and earned media, and then the questions you must ask yourself when doing an audit on both your social media platform and channels, as well as your competitors. Why is a social media audit so important? Well, like your other business classes, one of the first things that you do for a marketing plan is put together a situational analysis, taking stock of both what you're doing well, what you're doing wrong, as well as what the competitors are doing well and what they're doing wrong. So if you think about your traditional marketing classes, one of the first things that you do is either a SWOT analysis or use the Porter's five forces model. Of course, the SWOT analysis is one of the common ones that you guys probably have used before. Strengths and weaknesses are internal and your own company. Opportunity and threats are external or your competing brands and competing companies. The same philosophy is done. You need to know where you've been and what your competitors are doing before you set up your objectives. For instance, when I consult a new social media client, they say, what can we expect? What should we expect from our social media channels? Well, if you open up a brand new business, you can make it a lot of outlandish guesses in how many new fans you'll get, what type of interaction they'll have with your social media posts. It's a little bit irresponsible to open up a social media channel for a client and say, we're going to drive all sorts of interactions and all sorts of comments and likes and clicks if the competing brands that you're competing with aren't driving many themselves. You need to take a situational analysis of both where that current brand is as well as what your top two competitors are doing. So let's talk about the chapter in the book. Let's go over social media audit, understand a little bit more. So we're going to talk about three types of social media, and this can be a little bit tricky, and we'll go through this line by line, but your social media plan will encompass these three areas. We're going to discuss why auditing is a necessary step before formulating a strategy, and we discussed it a little bit. And then we're going to conduct a comprehensive audit of a brand's or company's social media activities, and I'm going to show you how to do one. And I expect the homework assignment is for you to perform 2 social media audits on competing companies that you're going to go to market and compete with. Who are they? Well, if you're opening up an imaginary business in a certain location that's going to provide a certain service, you need to research who you're going to be competing against. You can't just make a business without understanding who your competitors are and what they're doing. That's part of a situational analysis for any marketing plan. So let's take current stock of your situation. What's the purpose of doing these audits? To provide managers and clients with a comprehensive bird's eye view of what their brand is currently doing across all social media channels. But not only what their brand is doing, but what their competing brands and competing companies are doing also. This bird's eye view is to help managers adjust strategy, establish benchmark metrics, and what your marketing objectives should be with a social media presence. The 3 types of areas of social media are paid, owned, and earned. Paid is any social media activity for which a company pays. We'll have a chapter where we deal with Facebook and Instagram advertising and social media advertising in general. This is becoming more and more important. If somebody tells you that social media is free, or a brand wants to establish a social media channel because it's a free way to advertise, you're obviously not thinking of social media the right way. Much of social media to get anywhere has become a pay-to-play. Just like in life, nothing is free. Owned. This is any social media activity that occurs in a social media channel that a company controls. As you'll understand in your reading, organic reach refers to owned. Organic reach is very, very limiting, as you'll see in these demonstrations. If you can now get a 0.5 to 1.5% organic reach or engagement, you're doing a pretty good job. And this is why paid becomes so valuable. And then we have earned. Any social media activity that occurs in social media channels that a company does not directly control. This means mentions. This means other people talking about your brand. Now be careful. There's a blurry line in between paid and earned when it comes to influencer marketing. Recent activities has driven most people, according to the FTC, have to put the word ad or advertisement or sponsored in any sponsored influencer post, or they could be held accountable according to FTC guides and regulations. So there's a little bit of a blurry line, and we'll talk a little bit more about influencer marketing. And we're going to be interviewing one of the top 25 influencers in Cleveland, and I'll be posting that discussion a little bit later. But getting back to this, name some examples for the three areas. Well, paid. These are advertisements. Going to Facebook and saying, I want to reach a certain person. Remember, I had you do primary and secondary targeting demographics for a reason. You need to understand who you're trying to target, because you can tell Facebook, find those people and show my Facebook post to them. So you can tell Facebook, find people that are 25 to 34 years old, that are women, that like fashion, that like Coach, that like certain type of purses to help you sell more purses. Owned is the content on your brand's Facebook page or Twitter account that are organic. These reach a very small people, but it's an important part of your overall strategy. You'll be making organic posts 3 to 5 times a week. It's important to balance your paid advertising with also organic posts and build a following organically. Earned is word of mouth generally. Customers, social media posts, and reviews. These are your customers. You want to nurture your customers to talk about your brand organically as well. You want your customers posting pictures of their happy products, their happy services. This is an important aspect of it, and I expect you all to develop a plan to reach your current customers and help you post about your brand and mention your brand. This is what it looks like in graphic: paid, owned, and earned. As you can tell, owned is your social media channels. Earned is mentions and shares and reposts. Advertising is your pay-per-click and social media ads. As you can tell, they all intersect. That's why in that middle, it's so important to leverage all three areas of your social media marketing. And this is what social media marketing is all about. When your social media plan is running efficiently, you're leveraging all three areas. Note that, again, all three areas are distinct, and those areas potentially interlink and overlap. This is when your social media plan is working at full heights. So when we go over a social media audit, we want general overview of social media activities. For each active owned social media channel, what are you currently using it for? Remember, each social media channel for your brand should have a different tone, should have a different voice, and talk about different things. If you're saying the same things on Instagram as you are on Facebook, what's the point in following both channels? For each active owned, you need to understand the competitive and performance intelligence. And we're going to go over some of these metrics to help you establish your current brands. So that's part 2 of this social media chapter, is understanding and completing a social media audit. So when we talk about where we're going, we have to know who we're competing with and establish benchmark metrics to hold ourselves accountable to, especially if we're starting off. So our assignment is to complete a social media audit of 2 competing brands in your space. Who are you competing with? Well, that's something you should know. If you're creating a fictitious company to create a social media channel, do some research. Look on the internet. See who you're competing with in that space. Then pick 2 competitors or peers. Maybe they're not direct competitors, but they somehow overlap. One of the students had an idea for a cat cafe, cafe with coffee and pastries, but also to help drive adoptions of cats. So a competitor would be a local cafe, but a peer may also be a local humane society that they would work with. So you can see how they'd be perfectly okay if they did a one social media audit on a competitor, which would be a local cafe they're competing with, and then also a social media audit on a peer that is a humane society. Because again, you're looking to gain some insight from these two audits that you do. So each company, I expect you to write at least a paragraph on a description of who their company is and what products and services they offer. Then I need you to provide me the social media information for each channel that they have. Now, you don't have to do all the channels, but I do expect you to do at least one or two for each competing brand. So tell me, what social media channels do they use? What is the URL? What are their followers and fan counts? What are their average weekly activities? And then tell me the average engagement rate. Now, we calculate engagement rate using some pretty complicated tools, but I'm going to allow you to just provide a calculated interaction rate, meaning the number of interactions per post divided by their fans' follower count. And then finally, for each competitor or peer, I want you to tell me what posts do well and what posts don't do well. All right? This is how we're going to learn from other people's mistakes and successes. So for instance, let's do one of these. All right? Let's say that I'm competing with a company locally in Cleveland. I want to have a cafe and pastry place and sell breakfast foods. One competitor may be Hex Cafe. So if I look at Hex Cafe, I'm going to look at both brands, all right? And the URLs are up here. So I'm going to record that. So I'm going to say Hex Cafe. I'm going to record both of their URLs and post them right here. Now you can do this in table format, Word format. I don't really care. Next thing is the follower count. All right. Well, it looks like we got 7,999 followers on Instagram, as well as 5,182 people following this on Facebook. So right there, I have my two follower counts. Now I have to look at how many average weekly posts do they push. Well, if I go into each individual post, I'm just going to take a look at average weekly post. Looks like they one yesterday, one January 11th, and one January 5th, one January 1st, one December 29th. So it looks like on average they post maybe one time a week on Instagram. And if I hover over these, I can see how many people like or comment on their posts. We got 20, 15, 22, 37, 73, 41, 60, 54, 63. So on average, they get about 40 interactions per post. So if I pull out my handy dandy calculator and type in 40 interactions per post, divide that number by 7,990, it's going to give me 0.005. So that's a half a percent. Remember, after the decimal, it's a tenth of a percent, single of a percent, and then after that is percentages of a percent or decimals of a percent. So this is 0.5% or half of 1%. So right there, my interaction rate, I would put one post per week, and my interaction rate is half a percent, 0.5%. Let's figure it out for Facebook. Facebook, I have 5,182 people following. They post January 9th, January 1st, December 24th, December 7th, December 5th, November 17th, it looks like they post around 2 to 3 times a month. So if I go back to here on Facebook, I would put 2 to 3 posts per month. Now let's figure out their engagement rate or interaction rate, if you will. We got 23 likes and 3 comments. 6 likes, no comments. 14 likes, 2 shares. 10 likes, no shares. 6 likes, 1 share. So I would say on average they get about 8 to 10 interactions. So I'm going to pull out my handy dandy calculator, clear it out. All right, I'm going to put 10 interactions and divide it by their followers, which are 5,182 people. That's going to calculate it at 0.1% or 1.19, so I'm going to round up to 0.2%. So here it would be 0.2% under my Facebook post. Now, I'm going to assess both companies as far as which posts perform better. Ooh, 58, right? 32. Boy, it looks like the burger photos perform a lot better than the other photos. Their alcohol photos look pretty good too. The dessert, wow, look at the desserts, 83, 52. So I'm gonna write a little brief description and say they mostly concentrate on pictures of food, it looks like. And it looks like their most popular posts are dessert photos. So if I was Hex, if I'm competing with Hex, seems like a lot of people like dessert photos. It looks like tagging it with desserts too seems to perform well. So if I wrote my brief description, which is this paragraph, I would say, boy, they really do a good job posting pictures of food, but it seems like their dessert photos perform a lot better. So that's it, folks. That's all we're going to do. Because after we understand this, we can now begin to build off of what they do well, what they do wrong. They only post 2 to 3 times a month, so maybe we should post a little bit more. And again, this is what the social media audit's supposed to do. It's supposed to help us determine what we're trying to do and how we should build our social media plan. That's it for this week. Again, read Chapter 3 and complete the social media audit. Until then, have a good week.